All right, Mike. So obviously you're hoping any other attrition happens at the bottom of the roster, right? Like we can envision maybe post players that leave if Kofi comes back, there's not a big role, or if Illinois wants to add another player. But I mean, the keys right now are right. Coleman Hawkins and RJ Melendez returning. Like those guys seem to have star roles in front of them. In my opinion, it wouldn't make sense for either of them to leave. And I think 2 weeks after the season ends, they're still here as of 4/22 on Monday, April 4th. That seems to be a positive sign because, man, those guys are going to be stars for your team next year.
Yeah, and there's always different waves, right? If you get 2 weeks into the season concluding and they haven't put their name in the portal, and this doesn't just go for those guys, it goes for any team anywhere. There's different waves, right? It's everybody putting it into the portal, and then there's the recruitment, and then there's now guys coming onto those teams that will force more guys to go into the portal. So,
which by the way, May 1st is the deadline to get the one-time transfer exception. So if you want to be eligible right away, you got to put your name in by May 1st.
Right, exactly. And I think it's a cat and mouse game, because I think a lot of guys, if you are in the portal, you want to understand what that roster looks like, but that roster could look different from the time you commit to when you show up on campus. So those two guys in particular, priorities for sure. And I mentioned it before, that you can't stop recruiting your own guys. And part of that too is it's on the team as well. If you're a guy that knows you're staying and wants those guys to be a part of the team, you do your part too. And these guys have big roles ahead of them. I look at, I thought Coleman was able, although he, took a dip during the season, the way he kind of, revitalized that, his game and his season there towards the end was huge. And I think it should give him a lot of confidence coming into next year. Blocked a game-winning block against Chattanooga, right? And then Melendez, you watch him in that Houston game, and it's like, oh, man, all the star stuff that we were talking about and Brad Underwood's been talking about, you can just see it. He's just not afraid. I really don't think there's any moment that is too big for him. And now giving him a bigger role to kind of expand his game a little bit more. And I'll say it too, like, he's not going to be a 60% 3-point shooter. So all the fans are expecting him to, that typically doesn't project. If he does, he'd be the all-time 3-point percentage leader if he qualified for attempts. But you got to get those guys back. You have to, because I think they're going to be big parts of not only just, their role, but these are two guys that are, have won a Big Ten regular season title. I think the more that you can keep guys on your team that have done that have seen what it takes, the better, because then guys that come in can learn from those guys. When you get a Jaden Epps on campus, Sincere Harris and Ty Rogers, they're surrounded by guys who have done it before. If you completely overhaul your roster and get 10 new guys in, now you got 10 new guys trying to assimilate themselves into the. I had this my sophomore year. My sophomore year, we had 9 new guys. Like my freshman year, it was me. The carryover was me, Ravante, Nana, Joe Bertrand, Tracy. That was in April, like late March, April, and May. It was just us 5 on campus, just working out together. And then you brought 9 new guys in, which they had to. 5 graduated, 4 left, and 4 transferred. And there's just a natural thing with new guys. They kind of have to focus on themselves at first and getting themselves acclimated, to where when you have more established guys like Melendez and Hawkins and these guys that have done it before, they know kind of what they have. So now you can pass it on, right? Yep. Now you can go help that next guy. And I think that's what ends up building programs. And that's why it's really hard year after year to be like the full turnover team that tries to win. If you're going to be the full turnover team, it better be supreme talent that you're turning over into, to try to sustain the notion that the guys are going to be looking out for themselves. And it's not a selfish thing. It's a human nature thing. Right?
Texas, like everyone had them top 5. They end up a 6 seed because they're really talented, but that's kind of a perfect example. I want to ask you, Mike, like, what does the leap look like for those guys? Coleman's always a guy that felt like his progression could look a lot like DJ Wilson. He's actually ahead of where DJ was. I don't know if the leap's going to be as big as DJ's was his junior year. And then RJ Melendez, you see some of these guys that were sophomores, played kind of small roles in the Big Ten, turned into stars. How big of a leap, or what does the leap look like for both those guys?
Yeah, I think you want to be able to kind of temper expectations. We always look at, like, we'll go and look at a guy's stats from his freshman to sophomore year and see, like, let's say he averaged 3 points a game his freshman year and 9 points a game his sophomore year. Now we factor, hey, add another 6. Mm-hmm. Now he's 15 a game. It just doesn't work like that. So I'll start with Coleman Hawkins. I think Coleman Hawkins is a good piece no matter how that team is constructed because of what he offers, right? Energy, effort. If he can shoot it consistently, absolute bonus. Now, do I think that Coleman Hawkins can be like your first or second option? Probably not. I think it's almost better for his game to be more of like a third, fourth guy that is just energy and you're maybe focused more on Kofi, which opens up Coleman more. Can he handle it a little bit? Yes. But RJ Melendez, I think, is a guy that if Kofi returns this year, I believe RJ can be your second guy. And it's because he can handle it, right? He can come off of ball screens. He can score from all 3 levels. He is that guy. I see a lot of, and please bear with me when I say this, but I see a lot of Johnny Davis in the sense of came off the bench. I know Johnny played a lot more his freshman year, but great athlete, has a solid mid-range. I think RJ is probably even a better 3-point shooter than Johnny is. But Johnny is wired a certain way to where he was able to take that leap and be sure of himself. I think RJ's wired similarly. Now, does that mean that RJ is going to be like a National Player of the Year candidate next year? No, but I think he can take a leap that to turn into an impact player is what I'm saying. And whether that looks like 12, 13 a game, rebounding at a high rate for his position. I don't think it's crazy for RJ Melendez next year to be like, a 13 and 14 and 6 guy. I think he can absolutely do that. Now it's going to come down to how this roster is constructed because, you look at a lot of teams this year, balance is good. You don't need to have, I know Kofi comes back next year, he's probably going to be 20 a game. But there are a lot of really good teams in college basketball that are 15, 13, 12, 11, 9, 9. There's a lot of good teams like that. So I think RJ Melendez projects more into like an impact guy than Coleman Hawkins. But that's not to say that Coleman can't make an impact, because he can. We've seen that. I just think it's Coleman's is going to be much more predicated on what those pieces are around him. And RJ is going to be a guy that it may not matter what pieces are around him. He can kind of be that guy.